Hey everybody, welcome back. Thanks for joining us. Um, Sorry I missed last week. Had kind of a crazy Sunday night, so the stream, well, I had to put it off a week. Sometimes it goes like that. If you're new to the channel, or new to the stream, thanks for checking us out. This is Art Stream with Trey Gallaher, and that's me. And hopefully you'll enjoy what we have to offer tonight. It's usually a Sunday night when we're getting around to doing this, and so far that seems to be my schedule. So Sunday nights, usually late. I would generally say probably after 9 or 10 o'clock. You just have to keep your channel open. But tonight, gonna get back to a concept that I had been thinking about for a while. I'd kind of done this thing that you see here, which was a concept for just sort of a pirate that I had remembered, was inspired by, and I had done this sort of headshot drawing just sort of out of my head, thinking about a couple of sources and things like that as inspiration. And so I decided that tonight I would try to get back to maybe working out more of a finished body for this character. So I'm going to sort of start with this as my inspiration, and I don't know that everything that I'll design will fit this thing perfectly, but I do generally have this idea for this pirate and this concept for a pirate. So I'm going to kind of work up some loose concept sketching and maybe some silhouettes, a rough draft. I don't know that I'll get to a clean line drawing tonight, but I think I'll try and at least get a body worked up for him. And if it stretches into 2 streams, that's fine. But I'm going to start with this as inspiration, which you can see here. This was something I had done a little while ago, but wanted to get back to sort of finishing the design for this. So this was sort of my inspiration, and this is what I had come up with for the head design. And so I'm kind of working backwards. Sometimes I do the body first and then do something that's more of a head, but sometimes I'm more inspired by the face and the expression and the kind of human quality, and can use that as inspiration to flush out the rest. So tonight I'm starting with this concept sketch for a pirate that I had done a little while back, and now I'm going to work up the body. So if you're first time joining us, welcome. If you're coming back, thanks for coming back, and I hope you enjoy this process tonight. So I'm going to go ahead and put this off to the side here as sort of my inspiration. Keep that nearby, and then I am going to work up maybe a rough draft first. I could potentially do some silhouettes here, which I might do, but I think just to get kind of warmed up, I'm going to go ahead and just draw something that is an initial idea for the body and just get that out of my head. I often find that when I'm working on an idea, that until I actually just draw what is in my head, the first thing that I'm thinking of, that many times that subconscious, that subliminal thought that is in my head about something already will continue to manifest itself and try to find its way out. But if I just draw what's in my head first, then I can truly begin the exploration process and try things that are new, because I know at least I've done what was already in my head to start with. So here goes. I'm just gonna sort of start roughing something out to get myself started. Just making sure I'm kind of on the screen. All right. So I think to start out, I'm gonna, since I'm working up a body, is I'm gonna start with a ground. just to give myself something to think about. I picture this guy being kind of strong. He's a man of the sea, man of the ocean, hardworking person. He's probably had a pretty rough life, but has had to use his body and his brawn. So I'm working right now, by the way, with a lot of times when I'm just starting light, rough sketch out of my head, I'll stay with a relatively light graphite pencil. I'm working with a 2H. Turquoise happens to be one of my favorite choices for 2Hs. It's kind of weird that way. When I go to HB, I like turquoise, but then I'll also like the Statler pencil, which is pretty good too. Or Shadler, I guess another way I've heard it said. I like those HBs, but 2Hs, I don't know why. There's something about the turquoise that I really like. It's kind of soft. All right. So let's see if we can just get the one out of my head sort of in place. Picturing not a super tall person, but probably a solid athletic kind of build. I have kind of a wire framework that when I'm working up characters that I like to work with. Similar to one that I teach in some of my life drawing classes, specifically the more gesture drawing classes. Work up a little bit of a framework. Kind of helps me think a little bit about proportions, body type, while at the same time kind of considering maybe some gesture. And at this point, I'm just trying to keep it loose. Just begin to build some sort of body frame. Totally in flex. So I'm thinking about proportions here. Height, number of heads to body, proportions of shoulder width to waist to limbs, etc. Not too worrying about costume details at this point, except a couple things that I might know might be here. And I know that I definitely have this kind of very distinct hat. Which is definitely kind of part of this guy's outfit. I can't say that this first rough is ever going to be super original. It's just probably actually full of the cliches that a person has from all the sort of input that you've ever thought about a certain subject. Usually you can't ever trust your first 20 drawings really. If everybody's got the first same impressions, and when you're trying to find something truly original, you have to get away from all the things that have been done before, and our head is full of these things. We all look at very similar media. Same things we've all been exposed to, similar stories, films, movies, comics. We've seen a lot of things before, so in order to get to the new stuff, you have to kind of get away and get the stuff out that your brain is already wanting to go to. I think it's a natural thing to want to relate to something. I think whenever you're thinking about an idea or you're thinking about something that you're seeing maybe for the first time, it's completely natural to want to relate to what you already know. That's just almost a defense mechanism. Where do I know this from? Do I have to worry about it? Etc. And so that's your first instinct. So when you're thinking of ideas, at least for me, I find that my very first ones are usually filled full of ideas I've seen before somewhere else, at least in some way. And that can be okay too, and depending on how much I've really thought about an idea to start with, I may have thought about it a lot longer. I remember when I came up with this idea, it was something that had been kind of knocking around in my head for a little bit, but probably some weathered clothing material. All right. It's got a little bit of a body type there. It's funny, but a lot of pirate sailing crews, we think of their outfits as having this classic kind of stripes on their clothing. Why pirates have to have stripes, I have no idea. Except that I guess maybe if pirates were really the guys that they were probably former prisoners. So stripes were worn on prisoners as sort of an identification that if they tried to get away, you could spot them. So I think maybe the idea partially was that this was something from their former life. So this is just a rough, out of my head, sort of thinking about proportions, just getting some basics down. be wearing some sort of cheaply made sandals. A lot of pirates ended up maybe being barefoot, although you'd have to be a little careful being barefoot, I suppose, on a operating vessel. It's a chance to get your foot crushed, but same time climbing ropes on ships, having your feet more like hands or appendages that you could for you guys, probably kind of muscular, big trapezius. I'm going to hold off on the eye patch for now. Probably some growth on the face. In this particular case, I know that I kind of wanted this beard. Maybe some sort of sandals, maybe barefoot, maybe boots at some point, but I don't know. This guy's going to be pretty haggard. Maybe some sort of rope here on the ground. All right, maybe that's number one. I think maybe we need to be looking at something that's a little bit larger. This guy's not the tallest, so I'm going to start maybe this one a little bit taller, maybe a little bit burlier. bit about neck size. This guy's got the guns a little bit more. Just staying loose, trying to find the proportions, shapes, pushing things a little bit more. Maybe shirtless on this guy. Just staying loose, trying to find it. Some key anatomy points. This guy's got kind of like a little bit of a chains, escape from prison. He's on the run. Many times at this stage too, working out a couple of different proportional body types, just to kind of figure out what build of a guy do I want. All right, maybe one more. try short. A little shorter and stockier maybe. Still got to be pirate. Still got to be a pretty tough character. Short but stocky and probably still very strong. Strong hands, solid hands. Just keeping it loose, trying to find it. Much rounder face. This guy probably needs a little help. Sometimes when I'm doing a couple different body types like this, I might do little bits of variation in costume just to kind of work it out now. So if I can already start to see if there's some piece of costuming that fits more perfectly for a certain body type. Might think about some boots. I think I'm going to change this guy's stance just a little bit. The heavier set guy here, I think, is probably going to maybe do boots. He's probably going to be a little less confident in his physical stature, so maybe boots is... or shoes of some sort. Okay, so not too much detail here. Just really thinking about body type and maybe some early construction. Something that might pop out. Maybe I could learn a little something from this. So we definitely know the facial hair. Kind of playing with tone a little bit. Darkening certain parts. I think a heavier set guy is probably going to be more like the belt. Thinking maybe one hand up here on the belt or near the belt. Rounded shoulders, thick neck. Definitely strong. You want to probably tussle this guy. Low center of gravity. Thick. Not too worried about details, just looking at overall read body type. Kind of classic too, you know, I'm not trying to reinvent pirating. But this guy, you know, we've definitely probably got some tattoos. This guy's probably in the best shape, so maybe he's got the... Now coming back to first one, many things now that I see definitely need some more improvement here. Probably the more times that you draw, again, another reason to kind of rough things out in the very beginning is just that the more times you draw something, the better you get, the more you can start to manipulate things. Kind of like these bands, this idea of, he's kind of a strong guy, he's doing a lot of heavy lifting, so maybe he's got reinforcements on his arms. This guy's built pretty good. Looking back here at this first one though, definitely less interesting, and needs a little something. It's more kid-like. These guys are definitely more grown men, where this is a little bit more, well, I guess just childlike. So I'm going to be thinking about how I can push this one a little bit more. Maybe a little bit longer on the pants. Definitely I'm not digging the stripes too much. Say that that is the one quality here I'm not too happy about. Plus it's just too cliche. You just can't do the stripes. You can't do the stripes, come on. But as I'm looking at body type here, I'm thinking, well, coming back again. Does this seem right? I don't think he's quite that heavy. This seems possible. Definitely liking this. Strong guy. A little taller than I probably pictured here, but maybe, but this is a little too boyish. Which is to say that I think his body just needs to be bigger, especially in comparison to his head. So maybe I could come down on the hat size a little bit, see if that makes much of a difference. That helps a little bit. Oh yeah, that helped. That helped a lot. So his head does not stand out quite so much now. A little bit more on the beard. He's strong. Maybe some tattoos. Maybe something a little uneven too. You know, symmetry is a killer if you're trying to make memorable characters. Symmetry is sort of the brain's way of making sense out of things and to file things into your memory, but that's not a good way to make things stand out in your memory. So be careful of symmetry. That's It's one of the dangers of working with too much symmetry is that everything looks too even and your brain goes back to sleep. Your brain's looking for things to keep it alert, needed, to keep it useful and needed. And if you give it too much predictable information, it just goes, yeah, I got it, back to sleep. More squared off shoulders. That's better. Getting there. All right, now not too much more is needed here because this is just a rough, unless I need to tweak a little bit with proportions to know that something is right. And so I think on this one I'm just going to clean up a little bit with the eraser to know that I can see it a little bit more. Make some little small corrections. The idea, maybe he's holding some sort of dagger. Or maybe that's too obvious. Maybe he's carrying something. A pail. A pail? Swab the decks. Mateys. I don't know. Have to figure out what those hand positions are doing. That's better. That's better. Okay. All right. Body type 1A. Body type B. Maybe. Or body type C. Definitely not working with that one. Although I like this guy, but not as something that would go with this one. So I think we're somewhere between these two. This is a massive guy. It's kind of standard, but somewhere in here. So we're looking at, this is probably 6 heads tall, where this character's probably closer to like 8, maybe even 9 by the time I flesh him out. So this is probably more like 6, 7, somewhere in there. This is more like 8, 9. This might be a little bit closer to 5, 6. And in terms of feet, I don't know. 6'3", 6 foot, 5'8", 5'5". I don't know. Something along those lines. So, I think there might be something worth doing a little bit of maybe some silhouettes on these guys. Although I don't need to strive for that much new. I'm not striking out for most original version of a pirate. I'm not reinventing the pirate per se. These might be background characters, so they have to feel like pirates, but maybe not alien pirates or another species. So I'm kind of curious to see what a silhouette might tell me about these. So before I go into too much detail, I think I might do a little bit of a silhouette test on this one, just to kind of see. Also, thinking I might back this up just a little bit. All right. By the way, I am working on marker paper here. This is actually some recycled marker paper, which I find really doesn't make a huge difference. I don't know, maybe some purely marker rendering illustrators might beg to differ. But for my purposes, most of the time what I'm finding is that the recycled stuff at the discounted price is worth it. I don't see a huge difference. But then most of the time marker paper I'm using with markers, I'm not using markers to a finished illustration. It's usually for like a sketch or a comp or something like that. Now what I'm doing here is I am just going to fill this in with basic flat marker black to kind of show me what the read is on this thing. And if maybe I could stand to perfect it at all. So in this case I'm just getting a little suggestion of the contour of what I've worked up very loosely, not much detail, just for body type. And then I'm going to do a quick fill just to see what it reads like. The silhouette reduces all information to just a graphical 2D read. And that's sort of your first, from a distance, if you were looking at this guy from a long way off and you just saw the silhouette, it would tell you something about the impression of this character. Were they big? Were they strong? Masculine? Feminine? All of those things. It just gives you kind of an idea of what your first instincts are. And if you want a guy to be menacing or threatening or intimidating or powerful, then they're going to read that way from a distance. And since this is just a rough, straight out of the head with not really a lot of references or working with models or shooting reference or anything like that, then doing a quick silhouette test of something tells you how it reads, what some of your first impressions are of it. So again, I'm kind of coming back over the top. I'm just touching the outside edges. I'm going to keep my initial rough in case I ever need to look back at that for reference. But before something can read in all the detail, it has to be able to read in the most simplified form as well. So again, a silhouette is the most simplified 2D information. And let's take a look at what that says to us. And maybe it'll actually tell us what shapes we need to push around. Maybe there's something we need to adjust to bring a certain quality. That's not reading out. Maybe it's a proportion. Sometimes silhouette studies, many times, more often than not, people start with silhouette studies. But I like to use them to see how something is reading instinctually. Again, maybe I already have an idea and I want to test what its silhouette might look like. I think in this particular case, I am not going to do a silhouette study of my heavyset guy since I don't think I'm going to work with him as my next design. I think it's going to be somewhere closer to one of these two. Okay. Thing to remember about marker paper, you are only working on one side. Generally, marker paper isn't coated on both sides, so there can be a little bit of a difference in how it reads, how well it soaks in. And the idea with marker paper is that it's coated to keep the ink on the surface and wet longer, and therefore allows the wetness to blend a little bit better and give you a more even coat until it dries and sets in, so it doesn't just soak in. And if you work on regular bonded paper, it's just going to soak in directly, and that can sometimes work in your favor if you like that look. But if you're looking for something smooth and even, then marker paper is generally designed to keep it on the surface longer, to resist the bleeding and the soaking in, so that the pigment has a chance to blend a little bit better while it's still wet. So make sure you know which side is designed for the marker, because I have found in my experience, usually that's only one side. I've never really found a marker paper that was the same equally on both sides. Okay. I'm using just a Copic black here So I'm going to just start filling these in. If you're working digitally, same principle here. No real difference. Your choice of whatever medium you want to work in. Principles are still the same. It's important to stay as true as you can. Sometimes I see people do a silhouette check like this, but they reinterpret too much, and they're not really getting a true. It's not a graphical representation of your drawing. It's supposed to be an edge-to-edge exact silhouette read of your line drawing. So you got to get it right, down to the little nuances. When you reduce all that information on the inside and make it solid black, which it needs to be solid black, your eye starts paying attention to those edges and the descriptive information that's conveyed through those subtlety of those edges. Something that's a little bit of a jagged edge might feel like a shirt or a collar or a piece of equipment or something like that, which can be great for inspiration, which is why people like silhouette studies sometimes for inspiration, because you just fumble upon little things that make your eye go, what is that? What is that? What could that be? Just checking, just to make sure it's not going through, which good marker paper should not be going through. Another good sign I'm on the right side. So fill in solid black and be faithful to as much as you can to your original drawing. What that's telling you. If you need to do more silhouette studies, which I might after I've done this quick check, I might realize I need to experiment a little bit more or cut back on certain edges or edit the silhouette in some sort of way. But at least do one that's 100% faithful. Okay, it's looking pretty good. I got a little bit of my ponytail out here. I'm going to go ahead and start the next one. Sometimes, like in this case, I've given them certain tools or something in their hand. I could, if it's small enough impact, you could probably add that to the silhouette. If it's too big of an impact and it's affecting your ability to read something's proportions, maybe not a good idea. you know what? While I'm here, I am going to go ahead and do this last silhouette. Because the more I look at this, there's things about the stance and something about the overall strength of this guy that I think could be more readable. Might learn a little something here, so I'm going to go ahead and do just do this silhouette while I'm here. Don't have to use it, can always kind of decide not to use it later. But there might be something about a hand position. Maybe it's the shoes, a bit more angle. Maybe it's the boots. See, you learn something every time. Every time you think you got it all figured out, there's still more to learn. So one thing I was kind of noticing here on this shape, and I might have to widen this one just a little bit. The way that this beard is reading here, I like. Kind of fattens the jowl up a little bit. Now, I don't know if my guy is quite that heavy, but again, coming back, doing a quick comparison. Is that him? Is that him? Is that him? I don't know, I have to be honest. I think that first one is closer to what I'm thinking, but there are some things I like about this. So, what do we like? Time to talk about what we like, what we don't like. As I look at this, thoughts about this first one. So I think I like the shoulders. They're solid. Not a guy who works out, but a strong guy. A guy with an athletic build who probably works with his body every day, but not a big, tough guy. But strong. Strong hands, strong shoulders, but not a giant. Not a towering guy. But the pose is lacking character. Too much symmetry, too much of the same. And I think perhaps the costume needs a bit more study here. This one I like a little bit better, in that I think has a little more personality. I kind of like the way the pigtail is looking here. I think the hat proportion is pretty good. I think shoulders might be a little wide, a little too hefty. But I like this idea of the bracelets for sure. This kind of, I was bound and broke away. Like my chains, I was put in lockdown, and now I've escaped. So I like a little bit of that idea. I like the legs on this one also. I think the legs work pretty good. Kind of athletic. A little stronger legs, but maybe a little smaller on the shoulder. The last one has a portly quality to it, which I like too, but again, not how I imagine this guy. I pictured him being a pretty strong guy, athletic, but not slovenly or portly. So good character, good silhouette, maybe used for something down the road, but not on this one. So again, I think I'm still looking at something that's probably a combination of one of these two. Little stronger legs, more like this, but I like these shoulders. The shoulders and neck. I do like the beard on the portly guy. In terms of footwear, I think I didn't picture this guy wearing too much in terms of like formal attire. He's kind of a guy working on a ship, working on the docks. Probably wears boots, but then probably goes barefoot a lot. Probably has tough feet. So I like this idea of barefoot. He's not marooned, but he works a lot on ropes and needs to climb. So maybe boots, maybe not. Still might have to explore that a little bit. But I definitely think the legs need to be a little bit more powerful up in here. I like the shoulders. I like the hands and the shoulders. But I think this hat and this tail is a little bit better. And maybe the use of the bracelets. Maybe a bracelet somewhere on them. Okay, so pretty good info. Now, going back to the rough. Now that that silhouette's in place and I've had a chance to study that and look at this a little bit more, it's probably time for another draft somewhere in between that combines those things that I like. So make some little notations here. Things that I like, things that I didn't like. Shoulders. Athletic shoulders. Strong legs. Bracelets are good. Anklets. Hat proportion. But these are strong hands. I liked the beard here, so I will bring that out. Height is probably someplace between this one and this one. I'm gonna say maybe somewhere in the neighborhood of 6 foot. A little bit of ground shadow just to give him some weight. I suppose contrast, while we're at this, could come into play. I am seeing it with the silhouette behind it, which gives it a little bit of tone. Does that help? Does that not help? Not sure. Might be able to apply a little bit of marker here. Just for contrast. Now, this will not be on marker paper, so this will probably bleed in a little bit more, but that's okay. Just gonna kind of dust it a little bit. Just kind of see where the contrast lies. Lighter shirt. Just for contrast, I'm gonna come up here with a little bit of darker up top, probably a darker hat. That is the one thing I'm pretty sure is going to be consistent all the way through each of these possible designs. Hat's probably going to be a little bit darker. Just coming in with a 10% warm gray. What works, what doesn't? What else can I put on here? I do have a little bit of a warmer gray that I sometimes use for skin tones. I'm going to try that here. See if maybe he has light. Got to refill this one. A little bit better on this side. Right. That helps. I'm thinking sort of lighter pants. Definitely lighter pants. This might be worth some skin tone being a little bit lighter like this. Darker boots, definitely darker boots. I'll drop down with a guessing maybe something that dark, probably similar to the hat. Belt. Okay. Beard. Let's talk beard. Beard is going to bring in some contrast. So what can we do? Not too dark a beard. So let me try a little bit of experimentation here.